The contract was 100 pages long. It stipulated everything from my daily calorie intake to the brand of toothpaste I was permitted to use while working as a nanny. But Clause 8.2 was the one he underlined in stark, black ink. The nanny shall maintain a professional distance at all times. Under no circumstances shall physical contact of an intimate or prolonged nature be initiated with the employer, Mr. Sterling. Violation is grounds for immediate termination and forfeiture of all accrued benefits. They called it the no-touch clause. Last night, we didn't just break it. We set it on fire and watched it burn. My name is Sophia, and 6 months ago I was desperate. My student debt was looming over my head, and my dreams of being an artist were fast becoming a naive fantasy. So I had to do something fast. When I was offered a position as the live-in nanny for the reclusive billionaire Julian Sterling, I signed my life away. The salary could erase my debt in a single year. The subject, his 5-year-old daughter, Lily. A silent, ethereal child who hadn't spoken a word since her mother's tragic death 2 years ago. The estate, Blackwood Manor, was a beautiful prison of glass and cold steel, perched on a cliff overlooking a raging sea. Julian Sterling was its ghost king. He was all sharp angles and colder stares, a man who carried his grief like a weapon. Our interactions were transactional, dictated by the contract. He would leave notes. I would provide reports on Lily. We were satellites orbiting the same sad, silent little girl. Soon the change began with Lily. She started to respond to me, first with drawings, dark scribbles of a woman falling. Then, one stormy night, with a fever spiking, she clutched my hand and whispered a single, broken word. "Don't go." It was Julian who found us, curled together in her bed. I expected fury, a violation of some subclause about unauthorized proximity. But he just stood in the doorway, the storm reflecting in his eyes, and for the first time I didn't see a billionaire. I saw a father terrified of losing the last piece of his wife. The next day he was different. The notes stopped. He started asking questions directly. What did she eat? What do you think she's dreaming about? Our conversations were hesitant, a bridge being built over a canyon of grief. We found a common ground, our love for his daughter. One evening in his private library, surrounded by first editions he never read, he told me about his wife, Isabel. It wasn't a car accident, as the press reported. It was suicide. She had jumped from the very cliffs the manor was built on. He blamed himself. He was working that night, always working. In that moment, the contract, the no-touch clause, felt obscene. It was a rule for a man who didn't exist anymore. My hand, of its own volition, reached out and covered his. The contact was electric. Forbidden, he didn't pull away. His gaze dropped to my lips, and the air grew so thick with unsaid things I could barely breathe. He was the one who broke, pulling back with a ragged breath. "The contract, Sophia," he whispered, his voice raw. "It's for your protection, not mine." The no-touch clause became a third person in the house, a specter that haunted every glance, every accidental brush of fingers as I passed him a coffee. The tension was a live wire, humming and dangerous. The breaking point came one stormy night, a hurricane force gale that knocked out the power and plunged Blackwood Manor into primal darkness. Lily was terrified. We all were. Huddled in the basement safe room, lit only by flickering emergency lights, the three of us became a unit, a family. When Lily finally fell asleep in my arms, Julian looked at me, and the last of his walls crumbled. "To hell with the contract," he growled, his voice barely a whisper over the howling wind. He didn't kiss me like a billionaire. He kissed me like a drowning man finally reaching air. It was not gentle. It was desperate, hungry, and years in the making. The storm raged outside, but inside we created our own tempest. Clothes became obstacles, the plush carpet a sanctuary. We broke Clause 8.2 with a ferocity that felt like liberation. It was a collision of two lonely souls, and in that darkness, we found a blinding, terrifying light. Morning soon came. The storm had passed. The power was back, and so was the reality of our situation. We were master and servant, employer and employee. But now we were also lovers. The secrecy made it more intense. Stolen moments in empty hallways. Silent, frantic couplings in his study after midnight. We were playing with fire, and I was too in love to care if I got burned. The bliss was a poison, and I was drinking it like wine. Every secret touch, Every lingering glance in the hallway felt like a victory against the cold, sterile rules of Blackwood Manor. But the manor itself was a vault of secrets, and one of them had my name on it. It began with Lily. In a therapy session, she didn't speak, but she drew. A picture of 3 women, one with long, dark hair like Isabel's, falling. Another with my own blonde hair, standing with a man. And a third woman with a severe bun and a key in her hand, pushing the first woman. She pointed at the third figure and whispered a single, shattered word to me. Bad. The key, I'd seen it. Clara wore it on a thin silver chain around her neck, tucked under her blouse. A strangely ornate, old-fashioned thing. A skeleton key. Clara was the head of security of the manor, a woman who greeted me very warmly every day. Driven by a chill I couldn't shake, I retreated to Isabel's old art studio, the one place Julian had declared off-limits, a shrine he couldn't bear to enter. The air was thick with the ghost of turpentine and despair. Behind a haunting, unfinished self-portrait, a canvas where Isabel's eyes seemed to plead with me, I found a loose panel, and behind it her journal. Isabel began to read the journal. October 12th. Clara says I'm paranoid, that Julian would never hurt me, but she's the one who showed me the financial records, the secret transfers. She's the one who makes me feel like I'm not crazy. November 3rd. He told me tonight if I took Lily, he would have me committed. He said he had doctors who would testify. No one will believe the hysterical artist, he said. Clara was there. She held me after he left. She's the only one who understands. November 15th. I found it. A life insurance policy for $20 million, double indemnity for accidental death. Clara helped me find it in his encrypted files. She's my only ally in this gilded hell. We're planning our escape, together. The entries painted a terrifying picture. Clara wasn't just a friend. She was Isabel's confidant, her co-conspirator in the plan to escape Julian. She was feeding Isabel's fears, presenting herself as the only lifeline. Then, the final entry. The paper was stained with what looked like tears. Tonight, I confronted Clara. I saw the way she looked at the insurance documents. Not with fear, but with calculation. I realized she wasn't helping me escape Julian. She was helping him get rid of me. All those secret documents she found for me, they were plants. She's been playing us both. I have to get Lily and run. Now, the cliffs are the only way out without the gates. God help me. The more Isabel read, the more she understood. Julian's wife wasn't suicidal. She was a pawn in a game she never understood, murdered by the woman she trusted most. The key around Clara's neck wasn't just for a door. It was the key to this entire, horrifying plot. I ran to Julian's office, the journal clutched in my hand like a weapon. I didn't throw it at his feet. I slammed it on his glass desk, the sound cracking through the silence. It was Clara, I yelled, my voice trembling with rage and terror. She wasn't Isabel's friend, she was her executioner. She manipulated her, fed her paranoia, and then pushed her off that cliff for the money she was embezzling from you. Julian's face didn't shift to anger, but to a slow, dawning horror. It was the look of a man seeing a puzzle he'd spent years trying to solve finally snap into a picture more monstrous than he ever imagined. Clara, she handled all of Isabel's affairs after. She was the one who insisted the case was closed. She was the one who comforted me. His fingers flew across his keyboard, pulling up security archives I never knew existed. The system was tampered with that night. Whole segments were erased, but I kept a redundant, offline backup she didn't know about. The footage that played was grainy, silent, and more devastating than any scream. It showed Isabel's studio. Isabel frantic, stuffing a small backpack. Clara entered, her posture calm, reassuring. But then Isabel turned on her, pointing a finger, her body language screaming accusation. Clara's calm facade vanished. The argument was violent, silent, and brutal. Isabel tried to push past her to get to the door, to get to Lily. Clara grabbed her arm, they struggled, and with a vicious, deliberate shove, Clara sent Isabel stumbling back towards the large, floor-to-ceiling window leading to the balcony. The window was open. The sheer curtains billowed like ghosts. Isabel vanished from the frame. Clara didn't rush to look. She stood there, chest heaving. Then she calmly walked to the window, looked down, and smoothed her hair. She turned, and her face looked directly into the hidden lens of the backup camera. There was no remorse, no panic. There was only a cold, satisfied smirk. Then she reached up, and the feed went dead. Julian was shocked. All this time, I grieved a suicide. I blamed myself for her despair. And that woman, she consoled me. She told me Isabel would have wanted me to move on. He looked at me, his eyes hollow. She didn't just kill my wife, she poisoned my grief. His hand, trembling, reached for the phone to call the police. But before his finger could touch the screen, the sleek intercom panel on his desk lit up. Clara's voice, smooth as silk and cold as the grave, filled the room. I really wish you hadn't done that, Julian. Digging up the past is such a messy business. And you, Sophia, such a clever little nanny. You found Isabel's diary. I always wondered where she hid it. You see, I've been monitoring you, both of you. I have the footage from your rendezvous, and all other footage. Quite a violation of that employment contract, don't you think? We looked up. Every security camera in the office had a tiny red light glowing. She had been watching us. She had seen everything. Here's my offer. You sign over controlling interest of Sterling Industries to me and I disappear. The embezzlement, Isabel, it all goes away. You and the nanny can live happily ever after. Refuse. And I release the footage of your little indiscretion to the press. They'll have a field day. The grieving billionaire exploiting his vulnerable young nanny. You'll be ruined. And Sophia, no one will ever see you as a victim. They'll only see a gold digger who broke the rules. Julian looked at me, his eyes filled with a storm more violent than the one that had brought us together. He had a choice, save his empire or save us. He picked up the pen, but as his fingers closed around it, he looked at me, and I saw the same man who had defied the storm. He gave a barely perceptible shake of his head. This wasn't over. The no-touch clause was the least of our problems. We had broken the rules, and now we were in a game where the final clause was murder.